The sound of impending disaster was a deafening silence in the Kruger Dynamics team garage. Outside, the French air vibrated with the roar of prototypes during qualifying for the world's most legendary endurance race. But inside this multi-million-dollar pit box, the main car's engine, the K-Viper 12, was silent, dead. Benjamin Krejci Mize, the head mechanic, threw a dirty rag onto the floor with contained fury. Nothing. Diagnostics are clean, but the engine won't start. It's as if the machine's soul just evaporated. Vigo Kruger, the team owner, a man whose arrogance was as impeccably tailored as his Italian suits, ran his hands through his hair, desperation starting to erode his facade of control. Unacceptable, Benjamin. We have the best engineers, the biggest budget. How is this possible? The tension was palpable, a knot in every team member's throat. It was at this precise moment of panic and helplessness that a figure materialized at the garage entrance, a thin man, with a gaze fixed on something only he seemed to see. His name was Anders Shin, and he was 42, though life's hardships had etched a few more years onto his face. Anders never imagined he'd set foot in a place like this again, a sanctuary of speed and precision he had abandoned 5 years prior. He observed the controlled chaos, overheard fragments of desperate technical conversations about a ghost vibration in the MGUK, the car's hybrid heart, and he knew, he always knew. With a calmness that violently contrasted the frenetic atmosphere, Anders stepped forward. His voice was low, almost a murmur, but it cut through the noise like a blade. The harmonic resonator, it's desynchronized with the combustion engine's ignition frequency. Everyone turned. Contempt was instantaneous. Sebastian Keller, the team's playboy driver, let out a mocking laugh. "And who are you? The janitor?" Anders ignored the provocation, his gaze fixed on Vigo Kruger. "I can fix it," he said with disarming simplicity. And then he added the sentence that would seal his fate at that moment, "in exchange for food." The burst of laughter was cruel and unanimous. Vigo Kruger approached, a sneer on his face. "What? A sandwich to fix a $10 million prototype? You're a genius. Maybe we should make you technical director." The humiliation hung in the air, dense and suffocating. But Anders Shin didn't react. His expression remained neutral, his body still. That serenity was unsettling. It was the calm of a man who had faced much worse storms and survived to tell the tale. His eyes didn't see the mockery. They were busy dissecting the car's problem, piece by piece, in his mind. A quick, painful flashback struck him. The smell of burning metal, the sound of sirens, and his mentor's voice, the legendary Ivan Lombardi Hendricks, shouting his name amidst the chaos of an accident that changed everything. He shook his head, forcing the memory back. The past was a ghost he couldn't afford to face. Now, Vigo, feeling victorious in his display of power, turned his back. "Get this beggar out of here. We have work to do." But Anders didn't move. He stood there, a silent statue in the eye of the hurricane, his eyes now fixed on the engine schematics displayed on a monitor. To the Kruger Dynamics team, he was a joke, a madman. To the universe, he was a point of equilibrium about to tip. They laughed at the man who asked for food, with no idea they were mocking the only brain on the planet, capable of hearing that machine's secret language. What they didn't know was that humiliation was the least of the prices they would pay that day. If this story of prejudice and perseverance has touched your heart, prepare yourself, because what's coming is far beyond a simple plot twist. Subscribe to the channel to discover how a request for food would become the catalyst for a lesson the world of motorsport would never forget. Time was a relentless enemy. Every second, the K-Viper 12 remained. Silent was another nail in the coffin of Vigo Kruger's ambitions. He initiated an emergency video call with his engineers in Germany. Men paid astronomical salaries to be infallible. Their suggestion came after 20 minutes of frenzied analysis. A complete reset of the electrical system, forcing all modules to reboot. Benjamin Krejci Mize, following instructions with trembling hands, executed the procedure. The result was a sharp crack from the engine compartment, followed by a thin cloud of smoke smelling of burnt plastic. It had worsened. The main diagnostic screen, which had previously shown an enigmatic error, now displayed a cascade of critical failures. The car wasn't just broken anymore. It was on its way to becoming a $10 million carbon fiber paperweight. Vigo's fury erupted. "Incompetence, all of you! I pay fortunes for results, not excuses. His rage needed a target, and his gaze swept the garage, passing over his terrified crew and landing, inevitably, on Anders. Shin, who remained exactly in the same spot, observing everything with unnerving stillness. Vigo marched up to him, his face red with ire. "You're still here, you weirdo? Your presence is bringing bad luck. Go find garbage somewhere else, we're trying to do real work here." In a gesture of pure contempt, he pulled a crumpled €10 note from his pocket and tossed it at Anders's feet. "Here, buy your sandwich and get out of my sight. Consider it payment for your useless consultation." That act of cruelty was witnessed by everyone. Some mechanics averted their eyes, ashamed. Others, like Sebastian Keller, smiled, complicit in the humiliation. But Anders didn't even look at the money on the floor. His focus was absolute, an invisible line connecting him to the injured machine. It was Tilda Petrescu, a young junior engineer who usually went unnoticed, who spotted something extraordinary. She saw Anders's lips move subtly, whispering a series of numbers and codes. Ionic flux derivative, 7.3 microteslas. Compensate CAN bus latency by 400 nanoseconds. These were terms she barely understood, concepts from an engineering level bordering on theoretical physics. A shiver ran down her spine. This man wasn't an ordinary homeless person. Across the garage, Daniela Anderson Brown, the team's head of public relations, was shamelessly lying on the phone to a journalist. No, it's just some routine calibration adjustments. We'll be on track shortly, faster than ever." Every lie she told increased the pressure on Vigo. The official qualifying clock was ticking mercilessly. Less than 10 minutes remaining. Vigo's career, built on an image of relentless success, was disintegrating in real time. A new wave of memory assaulted Anders. This time the image was sharper. He was younger, wearing the impeccable uniform of the most dominant Formula One team of the era. Beside him, Ivan Lombardi Hendricks, the automotive design genius, looked at a tablet with admiration. "You don't see the world like we do, Anders," Ivan said with a paternal smile. "You feel it. You hear the music in the data. That's why you're the best." The sweet memory was brutally cut short by the next image. Ivan's car, the same one they designed together, engulfed in flames after a catastrophic tire failure. The loss, the guilt, the crushing weight that made him abandon everything and disappear returned with full force. He closed his eyes tightly. It was the pain of that memory that propelled him. He wasn't there just for food. He was there to reconnect with the only thing that anchored him, the only language he spoke fluently, that of the machine. "It's over. There's nothing else to do," shouted Benjamin, throwing a wrench against the wall. The metallic clang was the final sentence. Vigo Kruger, pale, cornered, looked at the clock and then at Anders. It wasn't a logical decision. It was the last spasm of a drowning man. He walked up to Anders, his arrogance replaced by a venomous desperation. "You want a chance, freak? You have 5 minutes, 5!" He pointed a trembling finger at Anders's face. "If you touch anything wrong, if you cause one more cent of damage, I swear I'll call security and you'll never set foot on a circuit again." Tilda held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. Vigo's mistake wasn't giving Anders 5 minutes. It was believing he would need that much time. The clock began to count down, not for the car's repair, but for the dismantling of his entire arrogant empire. Anders Shin entered the sacred space of the Kruger Dynamics garage as if walking into his own laboratory. The team's mocking silence followed him, but to him, it was just white noise. He ignored the titanium tool bench and the state-of-the-art diagnostic paraphernalia. Instead, he walked directly to the heart of the beast, the exposed engine. He didn't touch anything. He simply placed his palms lightly on the carbon fiber casing, closed his eyes, and stood perfectly still. He was feeling, listening, synchronizing with the machine's sickly pulse. "What is he doing? Meditating?" Sebastian Keller whispered to Daniela, who rolled her eyes. "It's the final show before total failure. At least we'll have a funny story to tell." Vigo watched it all with crossed arms, the expression of someone watching a car crash in slow motion, already distancing himself from blame. Anders opened his eyes. His search was over. He turned, not to Vigo or Benjamin, but to the only person in the environment not looking at him with contempt, Tilda Petrescu. His voice was clear and precise. Torque wrench. Setting 4.7 Newton meters. Fiber optic probe. I need an oscilloscope, dual channel, with a sampling rate of at least 2 gigasamples per second. The specificity of his requests shocked Tilda. These weren't tools for a mechanic. They were instruments for a scientist. While Benjamin scoffed, "He's making up words now?" Tilda felt a wave of conviction. She ignored the disapproving stares and rushed to get the equipment, her heart racing at the possibility of witnessing something unbelievable. She became his hands, his interface with that hostile world. Vigo, on the phone with a furious sponsor, tried to downplay the bizarre scene. "Yes, I know, it's a disaster. No, it's just an amateur we let have a look. A desperate last resort. Pure theater so the team doesn't get discouraged. We're out of qualifying anyway." He was already weaving the narrative of his defeat, one where he bore no fault. Anders worked with a speed and economy of movement that was almost hypnotic. His hands, which had seemed merely dirty from a life on the street, moved with the precision of a neurosurgeon. He didn't use the team's main diagnostic computer. Instead, he pulled from his worn coat pocket a small, homemade-looking device with a tiny screen and a few exposed wires. He connected it to an auxiliary service port that most mechanics didn't even know existed. On the small screen of his device, a complex and chaotic wave pattern danced. Anders pointed with a finger. "Here, the ghost resonance." Tilda, looking over his shoulder, gasped. It was a theoretical phenomenon she had only read about in advanced engineering papers, an anomaly where the hybrid system's electromagnetic field created a harmonic frequency that interfered with the crankshaft sensors, tricking the ECU and preventing ignition. It was considered so rare that no protocol existed for its diagnosis. Anders wasn't just fixing the problem, he was rewriting the car's operational physics. He handed Tilda a small piece of paper on which he had scribbled a sequence of code. "Type this into the direct ECU access terminal, exactly as written." To Benjamin, who looked on with disdain, the code looked like a jumble of digital garbage. But Tilda recognized the syntax. It was a bypass protocol of terrifying elegance, a way to instruct the car's brain to ignore the ghost signal and listen only to the mechanical truth. Less than a minute remained on the qualifying clock. Anders tightened one last screw with the torque wrench, the precise click echoing in the tense garage. He stepped back. "Start it," he said, with the same calm as before. Benjamin laughed loudly. "Start what? You didn't do anything. Just tightened a screw and typed a bunch of garbage into the computer. This is ridiculous." Vigo, completely resigned to public humiliation, made a tired gesture to the mechanic in the cockpit. "Start this damn thing. Let's get this over with and see the show." The starter motor groaned. A second of silence stretched, heavy and absolute. Then, another. A cruel smile began to form on Vigo's face, the smile of a man relishing being right about others' failure. In that silence, Vigo Kruger felt the sweet relief of, "I told you so." He couldn't have been more wrong. This was not the silence of failure. It was the silence of a perfectly tuned beast, taking a breath before unleashing a roar that would change everything. The sound that followed was not an explosion but a symphony. The K-Viper 12's engine didn't just start. It awoke with a guttural, clean, and brutally perfect roar. It wasn't louder than before, but it was different. It was the sound of absolute harmony, each of the 12 cylinders singing in unison with the high-pitched hum of the hybrid system. It was the sound of perfection. Outside in the pit lane, rival team principals and mechanics stopped what they were doing. Heads turned. That engine note wasn't normal. It was extraordinary. Inside the Kruger Dynamics garage, Benjamin Krejci Mace's jaw dropped. The diagnostic screens, previously a carnival of red alerts, now glowed a solid, reassuring green. Real-time telemetry displayed numbers that shouldn't be possible. Engine power was 1.5% above factory specifications, and the hybrid system's energy consumption showed 3% greater efficiency. These were gains teams spend tens of millions and a full year of development to achieve. Vigo Kruger's smile dissolved, replaced by a mask of pure, stunned disbelief. This isn't possible," Sebastian Keller stammered. What did he do? All eyes turned to Anders, who was now calmly wiping grease from his hands with a rag, as if he had just changed the oil on a family car. At that precise moment, an imposing figure entered the garage, drawn by the miraculous sound. It was Charles Thompson, the owner of the rival team, Tsunami Racing, the reigning world champions. His eyes, accustomed to evaluating every detail, swept over Vigo, then Benjamin, and landed on Anders' shin. Charles Thompson's face paled. He ignored everyone else and walked directly to the man everyone had scorned. "Anders? My God, is that you?" Thompson's voice was a mixture of shock and reverence. "We thought you had disappeared after Ivan's accident." He bowed slightly, a gesture of profound respect that stunned everyone. "It's an honor to see you again." The Kruger Dynamics team froze. Reality began to warp, to rearrange itself into a new and terrifying configuration. Charles Thompson turned to a speechless, bewildered Vigo Kruger. "Do you have any idea who this man is, Kruger?" Thompson's question dripped with contempt. "This is Anders Shin. We called him the Suzuka Ghost, the man who single-handedly designed the curse system that gave us 3 consecutive championships. Ivan Lombardi Hendrix's protege. He retired 5 years ago after the tragedy. No one ever heard from him again. A journalist following Charles Thompson in hopes of a scoop about Kruger's problems captured it all with his camera. The exchange of words, Vigo's look, Anders' dignified calm. The story of the century in motorsport was unfolding live. The news exploded through the pit lane communicators, and within seconds, on social media, the man Kruger Dynamics had humiliated, the homeless person they had thrown money at, was a living legend, a reclusive genius who had returned from the shadows. Anders didn't revel in the moment. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't smile. He simply looked at Vigo, whose legs seemed about to give out, and gestured towards an untouched catering table in the corner of the garage. "The food," he said, his voice neutral. It was no longer a request. It was a demand for payment. The humiliation for Vigo was total, cosmic. He, the magnate, the powerful team owner, owed his race, his reputation, and possibly his career to a man he had treated like trash, and the agreed price was a plate of food. Silently, it was Tilda who picked up a plate, filled it with the best food available, and brought it to Anders, her eyes shining with tears of admiration and gratitude. In that moment, Vigo Kruger realized he hadn't just been saved, he had been judged, and the verdict had been delivered not by a court, but by the perfect sound of an engine he never deserved, tuned by a genius he was too foolish to recognize. The race hadn't even begun, but for Vigo Kruger it was already over. The 24-hour race became a footnote to the larger story, Anders Shin's return. As the K-Viper 12, now with legendary performance, flew around the track, the motorsport world spoke only of the man behind the miracle. The next day, Kruger Dynamics wasn't celebrating an improbable podium. It was imploding. The video of Vigo Kruger mocking Anders and throwing money at his feet went viral, becoming a symbol of arrogance and prejudice. Sponsors, terrified by the negative publicity, began to terminate contracts in a cascade. The team, which hours before had been an example of power, became radioactive. For Anders, the change was seismic, but externally, he remained the same. Charles Thompson wasted no time. Even before the race ended, he sat down with Anders, not to offer a job, but to ask for his help. "I don't want you to be an engineer on my team, Anders. I want you to lead it. Create an innovation department from scratch. No budget, no limits, just your mind. Whatever you need, you'll have it." Weeks later, the scene was different. Anders Shin, now wearing a simple Tsunami Racing uniform, walked through a research and development center that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. He was still quiet, direct, and intensely focused, but the difference was the environment. Now, when he spoke, engineering generals and physics doctors fell silent to listen, absorbing every word with the reverence due an oracle. By his side, a tablet in hand and a glint of determination in his eyes, was Tilda Petrescu. Promoted to his personal project lead, her career had taken off. Her compassion and ability to recognize the extraordinary and the unexpected made her the perfect protege for a genius like Anders. She didn't just help him, she believed in him when no one else did. The fate of the Kruger Dynamics team was swift and brutal. Benjamin Krejci was fired, his reputation forever tarnished as the mechanic who couldn't recognize a genius. Sebastian Keller lost his seat, sponsors no longer wanting to be associated with him. And Vigo Kruger, the architect of his own destruction, was forced to sell the team for a fraction of its value, just to cover debts. The last time he was seen, months later, he was in an anonymous bar watching a race on television. He saw the Tsunami racing car, now sporting revolutionary aerodynamic solutions credited to Anders Shin, cross the finish. Line first. His face was a mask of bitterness and regret, the ghost of an empire he himself had set ablaze. He had lost not only his money and his team, he had lost his name. Iconic figures in the sport, like Ivan Lombardi Hendricks himself, who had survived the accident but withdrawn from the sport, gave emotional interviews. Anders' autism was never a limitation, Ivan said. It was his lens. He sees the world in frequencies we don't even know exist. What happened in the Kruger garage wasn't just a mistake. It was a sin against talent. Anders' story became a powerful lesson. It wasn't about cars or racing. It was about how society insists on boxing people in, judging them by their appearance, the way they speak, what they wear. Anders' strangeness, his difficulty with social norms, wasn't a defect to be corrected, but the direct source of his genius. He didn't think outside the box. For him, the box never existed. His mind was free to see the connections everyone else ignored. And you? Have you ever judged someone by their cover before reading the content of their soul? Leave in the comments a time you underestimated someone and were completely surprised. If this journey of justice, prejudice, and the celebration of what makes us different has inspired you, subscribe to the channel. Here we tell stories where the humble don't just rise but fly so high their detractors become mere specks on the ground. Viggo Kruger tried to destroy Anders Shin but ended up destroying himself. Anders learned that true revenge isn't retaliating for the harm suffered. It's reigniting the passion his enemies could never comprehend.